Alright. This time is when we introduced the companion. So, let's see. So Thea, of course, wakes up in the morning, goes to the docks, notices there's quite a bit of crowd. During this time, I wasn't sure what I was doing with Krakoa. I was thinking I was going to make it more monsters. It ended up being more beastmen. So there's a lot of rumors with like the crowd and stuff talking about what would be there, what things would be. And of course, the people that would come out of the ship would mostly be mouse folk, tabaxi. I think I said rat folk, but I think I later made it so that there was only one rat folk, and it was someone that was on the ship. Thea actually talked with the captain to see how much travel would be, and it'd be about 2,000 gold is what I said, in about 2 weeks. I had that set up because I didn't want to make it too cheap, otherwise she'd go right then. And there was a few more players that were saying that they'd show up and play and stuff like that. So it was going to be that. It would have been quite expensive, which would have been a deterrent, but by the time all the other players showed up, the captain would probably have wanted bodyguards for the trip or something like that. That something would have happened. And that's what I was planning on doing. One of the quests that Thea did, most of these quests I got from online, just like random ones from Reddit, r/D100, or is what it is, and just asked about quests. One of them that I liked was a request in kids' handwriting just saying that we want candy. This turned out to be a much nicer quest than I originally entailed it to be. Because originally it was just going to be like, kids want candy, and, you know, thinking that quest boards, they didn't have to pay or anything like that. Turned out to be a lot nicer. She goes to the candy shop that I made, Sweets and Treats, where she meets Uli, kind of had him be like the Western bartender kind of thing. Gave him a handlebar mustache. Just like a nice fellow, kind of older, but had plenty of neat treats for everyone. What would you like? Then, of course, when she finds the kid, she finds the kid is Figerson Newton. Goes by Fig. And if anyone can guess where I came up with the name, it's a joke for Fig Newton. The candies, or whatever you call those. I had him be the child of a seamstress in town, and so it was. Let's see if I can find it. I'll find it later. But he was very polite. He'd actually was about 8 years old at the time, missing his front teeth. Son of Tom Newton. Due to their setup over the time, I decided that, especially with how Thea was kind to him and how just the back and forth between the characters of how Thea's character was definitely a kind, caring person to him. I decided that he'd develop a little crush on Thea. And seeing as she's an elf and lives a long time, that was going to be one of those things I'd toy with over the time of to show time's getting older, and he goes from an 8-year-old kid to an adult that's got a thing for Thea. Have it, see how it goes from there. There was a second quest that was about lost mail, and Thea was surprised that it involved elven royalty. So it kind of led her to go, if I think back, yeah, it was going to be more of get some chance for bandits along the road and get a chance for her to travel back to the elven capital and talk with her parents a bit and do stuff like that. She bought a few more treats at Sweet & Treats. We came up with, fruit leather, and then like a tea sticks that are, I kind of think of it more like Japanese Pocky sticks. And that knowing that she's going to need to meet with her father, who is the king, she gets more fancy clothes from Heidi O, where it was Juno. Yep, Juno. And the owner makes a nice... Let's see, okay, there it is. Receives a nice, fancy, but also about her outfits like kind of Jon Snow from Game of Thrones look, where it's the leathers and furs that are fancy, but also shows that she's an adventurer. An interesting thing that we came up with was squirrel gloves, where it'd be kind of like the fancy winter gloves that have like the fur on the cuff, but we'd have that be the tail of the squirrels, and that'd be what she did with the squirrels that Thea herself sent over, and have it be a bear jacket that goes with it. She then, of course, meets the companion that I spoke of, Finn, son of Martin. This is about the time I was watching Adventure Time, so it's a key into Finn, the human, whose dad is Merton. So, kind of got the name wrong, but put it in there and, grab the names where I can. I'm not very good at names. Gets a couple of horses from Ralph, one of the city workers. Sets out. Travels a few days with Finn, who tells her about Krakoa. Thea tells Finn how elves are different than mousefolk. Just kind of building a connection there. One of the things I liked about Finn in particular, I originally, during this session, is I think the only time that I had him as a paladin that was more confident and more like how people would usually see a paladin, even though he's a small little mouse folk, and wears armor, he's protective. But later on, we figured out that he kind of do that every time he'd speak of, well, I don't really think about it, and it kind of became more mousy with that kind of stuff, and it just stuck. So that became his character. That anytime I'd try to get into Finn's character, I'm having a lovely time. Just his talk with his teeth, and but this one was really sweet because it was mousefolk would only live about I think 45 years or 50 years or something like that, and Thea explaining that, well, elves live for a long time. In fact, 50 years ago I lived in a forest for much longer than 50 years. And kind of a short conversation there. She kind of grows to trust him, tells stories of how she's a royalty. One of the things I did with Thea was she'd have visions a lot. So during nights I'd give her dreams that would show stuff to set up things for later. With this, so one of the nights she had a vision about turtle-shelled roofs. I had this as later on, even though this campaign kind of fell apart. It's in the same world as my later one with the Call of the Wild. That turtles, the village on Krakoa, would, once those would pass on, they'd use their shells as part of the roof. So a lot of the families that would be there for a long time would end up slowly growing their huts, of placing new shells up there. And I had one of the shells kind of remind her of Delcy, her turtle, where it was a little bit cracked or something like that, and just to kind of throw her off the trail a little bit, and just kind of get her to think what's going on there. Of course, she doesn't know about the turtle village, or didn't. She does now, if she watches this video. So during that, Thea tells Finn about the visions that she gets. They get attacked by bandits. I don't think they killed him. I think they just kind of chased him off, which is always fun. I like how Critical Role did it, where it was they can run into the same bandits over and over again. So all this as they were coming up to the forest that was the barrier between the human village and the human country and the elven country. We named the forest Galalelna Forest. You know, a lot of them are from books, and Galalelna Forest. So I think we just ended the session pretty much there, where they got into the edge of the forest and rested after several days of travel after leaving let me check. Terran is what the coastal city was called, and that's pretty much what that session was about. Is her meeting her new companion, getting accord with him. I had a fun time with it, and taking it slow as first levels, and just the amount that when it's just a two-person D&D group, DM and player, there's a lot more of building that the player gets to have so that way it's not just the DM speaking, and gets them to build the world along with you. And yeah.